Thank you, Dara. And he was interested in knowing whether he said my name right. And of course he did. And of course I do have a very difficult name. You know, all four of my grandparents came from the same Sicilian mountain village. My name is Badalyaka. And I've probably spelled it and written it out phonetically every day of my adult life. And the thing is that shortly after I got married, my wife married me, who had a much simpler name than mine. I overheard her explaining to her girlfriends, just say bottle of vodka. And I actually made this into sort of a marketing thing. You know, in business, when I would come to conventions like this, I'd bring little airline-sized bottles of vodka, and everybody remembered me. People would call up, and some people actually thought it was my name. Well, part of this speech is going to be a little bit about technology. And we all have these things these days, and about the relentless advance of technology. Now, that was my last name, Badalyaka. I never had any difficulty with my first name, but a business colleague of mine called me about 6 months ago and said he was in his car, and he asked Siri to please call Raphael Badalyaka. And Siri said back to him, I don't know how to refill a bottle of vodka. Let me begin by thanking you, not only for the honor you did me this morning by letting me share my thoughts with you, which is a great honor, but let me also thank you for the thoughts themselves. I'm here to tell you how much of my thinking about everything has been advanced by you. We all have missions. Everyone associated with the library, directors, librarians, volunteers, scholarship winners, congratulations to you, interns, donors, friends of the library, because you are all friends of the library. You all have a common mission, which is a mission of the highest level. High level, because your mission is to help other people fulfill their missions. The primary mission anyone has in life is to discover yourself. From that, everything flows. And since we are a connected species, even though it may not seem so today, with everything so polarized, with everyone bringing to every encounter a mindset that only sees confirmation of what was believed before the encounter. In other words, nothing new. In other words, no real encounter. Despite how all of this seems, it remains true that to discover yourself, you must hear other voices. It's the only way. Now, what is a book? Whatever the format, when you experience a book, you hear a single voice that is not your own. A book slows everything down. It reminds you to listen. When we experience a book, we listen to a single voice telling us something we didn't know before, making us feel feelings we may have never felt before, guiding us to discover ourselves. Because only by learning new things and feeling new feelings and having genuine encounters do we discover ourselves. Each book teaches you again an endangered art, how to listen. All librarians, as librarians, you are the guardians of the voices we need and long to hear. Just now, I said your mission was high level. I'm going to raise it to an even higher level. It's angelic. You are the angel warriors fighting the only war worth fighting, which is the war against ignorance. I love my library in Glen Ridge. I go there almost every day. And I do feel I'm surrounded by angels willing to help me with anything. And more than that, wanting me to want their help, which is the real gift. From Jennifer, the director, through the entire staff. And the warrior side is there too. Helen Becker, for example. If you mention to her you are looking for something, no matter how obscure or hard to find, she will track it down like a trapper in the wild. I always visit the new book section first. If I find a title intriguing, full of promise, seductive, I'll open it and read the first few paragraphs. If I'm still intrigued, I'll take it home with me. From there, it's either a one-night stand or a full-blown relationship. Sometimes we can't get enough of each other. And sometimes it becomes a lifelong relationship. Reading can make you the ultimate serial monogamist. There's a back door to our library. I thought I was the only one who knew about it until I encountered a woman leaving one day with an armful of books. There's a sign attached to the door that begins, "No running, no bare feet." It reminds me how I feel when I find a new, exciting book, like a child running barefoot through the grass. It reminds me how this whole adventure began with my mother reading to me. Parents, read to your children. The library has books for you. Periodically, there are economic debates about combining services and reducing the number of libraries. A town needs a library. Benjamin Franklin knew that. If you have to combine services, I have an idea. How about combining EMS and the library during slow EMS hours? In our town, the buildings are so close to each other. Rush an uplifting biography to someone who has lost his way. Rush someone a humorous title to prove that sadness can be temporary indeed. Give a thriller to someone sorely in need of distraction. Send a meaningful novel to someone on the edge of losing hope. Broaden a child's horizon in a hurry. Let the sirens sing. It's okay. But of course, you're already doing that with Buckles. We credit advances in technology these days. I have owned an ad agency and a software company, and I now have an executive role in a global software company with offices on 3 continents. I have used and created a lot of technology over the years. And I will tell you that Buckles, the Buckles system, is one of the most useful and efficient software programs I have ever used. It does exactly what it has to do without unnecessary frills or complications. I think I may be standing here today because I expressed to Arlene Sarai, as she neared her retirement, congratulations by the way, Arlene, how much Buckles had changed my life. The notion that I could hear an author interviewed in the morning, search for the book online before the interview ends, request it and have it in my hands in the next day or two remains magical to me. The best internet applications are those that remove the obstacles of time and space. Buckles does it as well as any other I know. For me, it has made things happen that otherwise would not have happened in my personal and business lives. It has advanced my thinking, and I have everyone in the room to thank for that. Speaking of technology, the internet has significantly changed our lives and defined our era. But don't minimize the much greater impact of the revolutionary technology around which your institution grew to prominence, the book. We can now store more information than ever before and send it wherever it has to go faster than ever before, but without the revolutionary advances of writing and the book, there would be nothing to save or send. One of the ways the library has handled transition and remains so relevant is by being receptive to all formats. I use Buckles to explore how works of art change when they move from one format to another. My list almost always includes books and movies with the same title. It's another way of exploring multiplicity and different viewpoints. I even have a blog called Books, Flicks, Mix, all about that. In 2008, 2 movies came out, both inspired by lines from the same poem by Yeats, Sailing to Byzantium. One was, of course, No Country for Old Men, a direct line from the poem, and the other was Elegy, starring Ben Kingsley and Penelope Cruz, based on the novel The Dying Animal by Philip Roth, also part of a line from the poem. Kingsley is a professor of literature who has a May-December romance with one of his students, Penelope Cruz, which is what the movie is mostly about. But it's also about aging and how, like everything else that matters in life, it takes you by surprise. One of the surprises the professor shares is that when you come back to the same book at another stage in your life, you read it differently. You see different things in it. It's not a static relationship. It's as if while you are reading the book is reading you. This is the process of discovery. I gave a talk in the Montclair Library called How to Read Nonfiction and Put Together the Puzzle of Your Life. I have been an avid reader of fiction since childhood, but in the last 10 years I have veered towards a new kind of nonfiction I find thrilling, partly thanks to Buckles. My library presentation is about the same thing I have been talking to you about for all these minutes: self-discovery. By choosing books about subjects to which you are passionately attracted, in other words, subjects that serve as lenses through which you naturally and passionately view the world, you see that world again and where you fit into it. You read the books and they read you. For example, I read a Buckles book about an inventive thought experiment. What would happen if all humans disappeared from the earth? From it, I learned about our two most durable contributions. Things that will never go away. Tiny plastic particles that fill the ocean, and radio waves that never die. The notion that everything ever heard on the radio travels out into space was mind-boggling to me. Along with the news from the same book that there are 200 untouched acres in the Bronx in the same pristine state as when the Dutch arrived on these shores. I was impressed to learn from a book about the notions of heaven, going back to biblical times, that the grandest biblical notion of what heaven could possibly hold in store would never compare with one walk down the aisle in an American supermarket. That is a telling observation. On the morning I first met with the Friends of the Library Committee, I picked up a book from Dara O'Connor's River Edge Library about time, my constant preoccupation. It gave me an astounding new perspective in many ways, but especially by illustrating in dramatic fashion how we draw conclusions about reality from the limited bandwidth of our own experience. Imagine, the book asks, that a man's lifespan lasted less than a month, like that of some small animals. Such a man might conclude that the moon went through a series of phases and then disappeared. Or if you lived only 8 hours, like certain insects, and you were born at night, you might conclude that the earth is an infinitely dark place. If you were born in the daytime, you might conclude that the earth was constantly in daylight. We draw conclusions from our own sensory bandwidths. Dogs have a sense of smell 100 million times better than ours. They smell things that were there 2 years ago. I guess we're lucky in that sense. Or by the length of our lifespans, we also draw conclusions from our own personal experiences that can only be put in perspective by hearing the voices of others, of which you are the guardians. In my 20s, I was fortunate enough to live in Paris for 2 years. I went there because I thought that's what aspiring writers do. I left New York City, where everyone thought they knew everything, and arrived in Paris, where everyone thought they knew everything, except they spoke French. In addition to everything else, Friends of the Library, you can also think of yourselves as travel agents, taking us all to faraway places our minds can go, to learn, to listen, and to discover ourselves so we can meet our responsibilities. Freedom of thought depends on you. So does a free nation. So does the world. We all need your friendship. Thank you.